Have you ever caught a glimpse of the version of you that you know you could become and felt both hope and hesitation at the same time? Not just the version of you that's trying to survive right now, but the version who's grounded, clear-eyed, steady. The one who doesn't second-guess every step. Who walks with purpose and grace, even when things feel uncertain. Like there's a part of you that's steady, clear, unapologetically alive, but it's still out there, somewhere beyond where you are now. That part of you lives deep down, and every now and then, you can almost feel her stirring. But between where you are and where she is, there's all this space. This is your wilderness, the vast, uncharted, uncomfortable in-between that becoming always asks us to walk through. And it's not for the faint of heart, because here, where the comfort ends and the questions begin, you'll face everything that's been holding you back. So here's the question. What would it take to stop staring at the distance and take one real step toward becoming? Welcome back to another walk through the wilderness. Today, we're leaning into this idea of becoming, what it really means to grow into the person you know deep down you're meant to be, even when the process doesn't feel graceful or clear. Because let's be honest, becoming isn't always beautiful. It's quiet, messy, tender, and it stretches you in ways you didn't see coming. Maybe you've been there lately, standing in that uncomfortable space between who you were and who you want to be. Looking at the habits you're trying to break, the patterns you're trying to outgrow, the fear you're trying to unlearn. If that's where you are, you're not broken, you're not behind, you're becoming. And in this video, we're going to walk through that journey together, from the struggles to the subtle breakthroughs, and everything in between. And near the end, I'll share a few journaling questions that have been helping me slow down and sit with the process instead of rushing through it. So be sure to stay with me if that speaks to you. Let me tell you a different kind of story. It's not about chasing a dream or seeking out some epic transformation. It's about someone who spent most of her life in the background, quiet, thoughtful, observant. The kind of person who didn't need the spotlight, didn't crave attention, and definitely didn't want to be seen unless she had to be. She was the reliable one, the one who followed the rules, did school because that's what she was supposed to do. Tried to show up, tried to fit in, but never quite knew how. Conversations felt clumsy. Group settings felt overwhelming. She wasn't rejected outright, but she wasn't fully embraced either. And slowly that became a pattern. Show up halfway, retreat the rest. It wasn't that she didn't want more from life. She did, but she didn't feel wired for ambition or boldness or just going for it. That felt like someone else's lane, not hers. Still, life has a way of nudging you, sometimes gently, sometimes forcefully, into motion. And somewhere along the line, she realized staying hidden wouldn't keep her safe. It would only keep her stuck. So she took a few steps, not big ones. She let life unfold and did her best to follow. But the more she walked, the more uncomfortable it got. Because becoming isn't just about doing something new. It's about letting go of everything you've used to protect yourself. The roles, the silence, the safety of staying small. And that's terrifying, especially when the thought of being seen still feels like pressure, like exposure, like you'll have to prove yourself if anyone gets too close. But somewhere in the tension between wanting more and fearing too much, a question started to surface. Is there a way to grow without abandoning who I am? Is it possible to become more without becoming someone else? And maybe that's the real story. Not about someone chasing a version of themselves out in the wild unknown, but someone gently, quietly uncovering the version of themselves that's always been there, waiting not to be noticed, but to be known, waiting for the space to breathe, to speak, to simply be. And that's where the real tension begins, because once you've glimpsed even a small piece of who you could be, it becomes harder to stay hidden in who you've always been. Because here's what no one tells you about becoming. The moment you start to uncover who you really are, you also start to confront everything that's been standing in the way of that. And it's not always some big external challenge. It's the quiet stuff, the inner resistance, the pressure to keep shrinking, even when you want to grow. It's the self-doubt that creeps in when you try to use your voice. It's the fear that if you really let people see you, they'll expect something from you that you're not sure you can give. It's the tension of longing for more, while still being terrified of being too much. You try to stretch, to show up, to take small steps forward, but part of you still whispers, who do you think you are to want more? Are you sure you can carry what comes with visibility? Wouldn't it just be easier to go back to staying quiet? And that internal wrestling match? It doesn't just show up once. It circles back every time you try to grow beyond what you've known. Because becoming doesn't just ask you to believe in a new version of yourself. It asks you to lay down the one you've been holding on to for safety. And that's not easy, especially when that version of you, the quiet one, the dependable one, the one who didn't need much, has helped you survive. But survival and becoming are not the same. Survival asks, how can I make it through? Becoming asks, what would it look like to actually live? Not just function, not just show up for others, but to show up for yourself, to let yourself dream again, to tell the truth about what you want without apologizing for it, to release the timelines, the titles, the templates, and begin walking towards something real. Even if it's slow, even if you don't know how it ends, even if you're still carrying fear alongside your hope. That's the tension, the becoming and the undoing, happening at the same time. You're being called forward, but part of you is still holding on. And maybe that's okay. Maybe this part of the journey is less about breaking free all at once and more about learning to loosen your grip, one quiet step at a time. One thing I've been learning, slowly, painfully, but deeply, is this. Becoming isn't about transforming into someone entirely new. It's about uncovering the parts of you that have always been there, but got buried beneath expectation, fear, and silence. It's not a performance. It's a return. Not to who you were, but to who you were meant to be before the world told you to dim your light, quiet your voice, or make yourself smaller to fit in. And sometimes, it's not the world saying that anymore. It's you. It's me. We've internalized those messages so deeply that we start whispering them to ourselves. But that doesn't mean they're true. It reminds me of Moses. Long before he ever stood before Pharaoh, he spent years in the wilderness, unseen, unknown, unsure. He doubted his voice, doubted his calling. Even when God spoke directly to him in Exodus chapter 3, his response wasn't confidence. It was fear. Who am I that I should go? I've asked that same question. Who am I? That I should speak? That I should grow? That I should take up space? But maybe the becoming happens not when we finally feel ready, but when we respond anyway. When we lean into the whisper, the nudge, the invitation, without having to be sure of the outcome. When we trust that if God is calling us forward, He already sees the version of us we're still uncovering. Let's take a moment to slow down together. Here's the reflection I mentioned earlier, something I've been sitting with in my own quiet time. You don't need to have the perfect answer. Just let the questions move through you and see what they stir. Who are you becoming? Not the person others expect you to be, but the version of you that's grounded, true, and fully alive. What parts of you are asking to be seen, accepted, or brought into the light? Not changed, just noticed. Not by others, but by you. What are you afraid of losing in the process of becoming? And is it something you were ever meant to carry in the first place? You don't have to journal it right away. Maybe just breathe with it. Maybe whisper it as a prayer. Maybe carry it into your next walk, your next quiet moment, your next exhale. Whatever way you hold it, let it be gentle. One thing I've been trying lately, just to stay connected to the process, is checking in with myself at the end of the day. Not to evaluate how much I accomplished, not to judge whether I got it right, but simply to notice, how did I show up for the version of me I'm becoming? Sometimes the answer is, I rested. I told the truth. I let something go. I asked for what I needed. I didn't shrink. And honestly, sometimes that's enough. Recently, I realized that showing up looked like saying yes to dinner with a couple of friends. I almost canceled. Honestly, I planned to. I told them I was this close to calling and saying I couldn't make it. Because that's my pattern. I like being home. I'm comfortable in solitude. But deep down, I knew I didn't want to keep missing the moments that matter. I've always struggled to maintain friendships. I care deeply, but connection doesn't come easily to me. I'm clumsy with it. So sometimes, becoming for me looks like just showing up. Not in a grand way, just showing up once in a while. And that night, we laughed. We caught up. It was good to be with them. And I was grateful I went. Because those small steps, the barely visible shifts, are often the most sacred. Becoming is a daily effort. Proverbs 4:26 says, "Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways." It doesn't say to run. It doesn't say to arrive. It just says, be careful, be steady, be intentional with how you walk, and trust that every step, especially the quiet ones, count. And if this journey has felt heavy, please know you were never meant to carry it all alone. I know what it's like to believe you have to figure it out by yourself, to feel like asking for help means you're weak, or incompetent, or not enough to walk through it on your own. But that's a lie. Shame tells us to keep us isolated. The truth? We were designed for connection. Two are better than one. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, 9, 10. You don't get extra points for walking this road without support. You just get more tired. So maybe part of your becoming is letting someone in. That might mean reaching out to a therapist, calling a friend, talking to a spiritual mentor, or just admitting, I need someone to sit with me in this. There is nothing weak about needing people. In fact, that may be one of the strongest steps you'll ever take. The truth is, becoming doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't come with loud announcements or by obvious milestones. Sometimes, it just shows up in the quiet way you keep choosing to try again. It unfolds in the in-between, in the days that feel ordinary, in the questions you're still holding, in the grace you give yourself when the growth doesn't look how you imagined. You don't have to conquer the wilderness. You just have to keep walking through it. So, if this reflection stirred something in you, if it brought clarity or comfort or even more questions, I'd love to hear what you're sitting with. Drop a comment if you feel led, not for the algorithm, but for the connection. Your voice might be exactly what someone else needed to hear today. Until next time, keep becoming.